Hello, you're listening to Because with Action Mary.
Dr. Peter Ward. Thank you, Doctor, for being with us today.
Well, thank you, Roger. And when I hear those things, I wonder, who in the world are you talking about? It's just in a long life, the stuff that accumulates, especially some time ago, just, I don't know about all you folks, maybe this is too off the cuff, but are we the same person, people? You know, decade by decade by decade, if you live long enough, you become multiple people. So that was a former me. Hopefully the me that's doing the stuff now is interesting.
Okay. You have studied the Cretaceous-Tertiary extinction event for our staff. That's the extinction event that has been attributed mostly to the work of Dr. Luis Alvarez to a meteor strike somewhere near Mexico, in the Gulf of Mexico. How did that event change our planet, and are we still feeling effects of that event?
Yeah, I mean, one of the fun things about teaching undergraduates is that you get to bring up fun examples. And there's so many great examples from this scientific discovery, like so many others. And we scientists, we have some very dirty little secrets. And one of those is that quite often what you go out to study is not what you end up writing about. The Alvarez's, the son, it was Walter Alvarez, went to Italy to try to show that mass extinction happens when the Earth's magnetic field reverses. Every 100 to 2 million, 3 million years, the North Pole becomes the South Pole. It's not that the Earth flips, it's the magnet that is created by a spinning Earth flips polarity. So what's positive is negative, negative, positive. Having a compass would drive you crazy in the middle of one of these things. But when the field drops to zero as it flips, the Earth is bathed in radiation. And we are saved from so much solar system nasty radiation because of the magnetic field. And so the Alvarez's quite rightly said in the 70s, when I was a grad student, this was the major theory. The mass extinction was caused by the Earth's magnetic field dropping to zero. And during that period, huge radiation caused mutations and all kinds of hell on earth happens. Well, he went out there and discovered that no such thing happened. They could see where the mass extinction was, but the magnetic field was perfectly well behaved at that time. And so when you're out and your theory falls apart, great scientists, like great athletes, make it up on the fly. And if they're lucky, find even more profound discoveries. And this is the meteor discovery was looking for something entirely differently. How it is today, for instance, if that had not happened, we would be sharing the world with dinosaurs still. Well, we kind of do. Birds are dinosaurs. But, I ask my students, how many times when you walk out of the lecture hall, have you worried about the little T-Rexes sitting there to eat 1 out of 10 of you? It would be a fun but different planet. Well, that's what the Jurassic Park people are doing now, right? They've unleashed the dinosaurs. They're running around. They eat the wrong people. They get good guys, bad guys, girls. But that goes right back to, their whole idea is the asteroid didn't kill them all off. And what is the world like now if we still have them? Which is it's a fabulous thought experiment.
Doctor, some scientists have said we are currently in a period of a 6th mass extinction. What is causing this extinction event? And what danger does this current extinction event pose for our planet? And to say that, a few weeks ago, we got news that the Department of Fisheries in Alaska had done a test to find snow and king crabs, and they didn't find any. So I don't know if that's an extinction event or it's just something that we need to be in mind of, but it set shockwaves through a lot of industries in the Pacific Northwest. So what is causing this extinction, and what danger does it pose to our planet?
That absolutely shocked me too. I do not know of an event in my lifetime that was more indicative of an extinction event going on. How so many crabs could disappear so quickly. It is all about temperature out there. And they found the culprit now, is that normally the water temperatures where those crabs reproduce and grow was 1 to 2 degrees centigrade. And we're talking 33 degrees Fahrenheit. It's up to 35 to 37 now. These crabs evolved in cold temperatures, and it's the equivalent to the opposite way. We have some nice tropical plants, and unfortunately, we left them out one night too long in Seattle, and the hibiscus do not like it when it goes down to 35 degrees here. Killed them all out. Well, the snow crabs were killed off by the heat. I finally got so sick of the pandemic, and in the last 2 years, not doing what I love most, which is field research. So I did 75,000 miles of air flights this year in 2022, 3 trips. One was to the farthest reaches of Papua New Guinea, an island called New Ireland, a little town called Kavieng. Second was to a much more civilized place, but still pretty far out there, Suva, Fiji. And the third was to London to present results from this. It was so strange to be traveling still in COVID-ravaged travel restrictions in April and May, working my way through Australia. And the Australians are really hardcore about letting people in. So all the tests we had to do. But getting to New Guinea and putting down deep water cameras, and I study 100 to 300 meter, 500 meter deep bottoms in front of tropical coral reefs. And the animals I study are chambered nautiluses, and they are thriving, absolutely against expectation. Alvarez all over again, not their level of discovery. But we had gone out there with conservation in mind, thinking nautiluses, these beautiful things, are dying out everywhere for the shell trade. What we've done is it's not just the snow crabs. The humans have removed almost every fish present in front of coral reefs. I've been diving for my whole life. And in previous years out here, it's really scary because of the sharks. In the last 10 years, about 11 trips, I've not seen a single shark in any of the 10 or 15 places in the Indo-Pacific I work. Not one. No sharks. No big fish. Our deep water cameras, no big food fish. They're all gone. China has gigantic factory ships, and they have now bought off much of the South Pacific. We know they have a defense treaty with the Solomons. They're in there. The Solomons said, if we have any political disruption, you can bring your troops in. So the Solomons have become essentially a Chinese outpost. I have a grad student from the Philippines. As we know, the Spratlys and all of northeastern Philippines, the Chinese have taken. They have removed the fish. Well, after every big mass extinction in the past, there are some species that do better. And nautiluses and ammonites and all these prehistoric creatures, which appear after the death, they're reappearing. We are in a big mass extinction.
You have written upon the subject of sea level rise. How much have the seas risen in the last 50 years, and what are the impacts that rising sea levels pose to our global food supply, our global health, our global financial security? I was thinking in terms of over the last 100 years, Doctor, we have spent a lot of money building on coastlines, and that property is very, very valuable. If you're sitting on a beach somewhere, it's very, very valuable. So is, for instance, the government of the United States going to replace that if a wave takes it out? Are we gonna expend our money the way we do when the Mississippi River overflows? And then also mass migrations of people. So can you talk to us a little bit about sea level rise? Where are we now? Where's it going? And what are the impacts of these important events?
Roger, how many days do we have? Because there's so much to say. As in terms of what is the first part of your question, how much has it happened is only a few centimeters. But the thing about sea level, we think of as the ocean as a bathtub, and it's one level everywhere, and it rises and falls just like your bathwater does all around you. Oceans are way bigger than bathtubs. There's lots of tectonic activity. And in fact, for instance, the Western Pacific Oceans or the West Coast of North America, sea level rise there is very different from the East Coast, very different from the Gulf Coast. The most rapid sea level rise that we know of is taking place along the coast of China. And this is, again, one of the most populated places on Earth. And the greatest single danger that I see from sea level rise is rice. When salt water rushes into arable land, it makes it non-arable. Rice is always grown at low latitude. You need to have water nearby. You need to have very low, flat fields. And it is the rice fields that are going to be most affected. Bangladesh, for instance, is scheduled to lose about 1/3 of its arable land. And it's not even from the several centimeters that we're going to be seeing more rapidly, but salt goes sideways. So you can have a 2 or 3 or 5 centimeter rise in sea level. Meanwhile, it has moved sideways through soil tens of meters. So a little rise seems not that bad, but it is because of the nature of soil and salt water going sideways. So to me, the greatest single danger sea level poses isn't to wealthy people losing their waterfront lots. I mean, that's a tragedy. But the real tragedy is lots of people losing their food. And we're already seeing the effects right now of the effects on the US southern border from many people that are being economically dislocated and being dislocated by political problems. But let's magnify that many, many times over when food supplies force people to move. And when Bangladesh people decide, I can't live in my house because it's now salt water. So let's move into the neighboring countries. That's when we start seeing major conflict. It's going to accelerate year by year. I mean, this every little bit is going to be like another school shooting. Oh, that's so horrible. And it's just, maybe it'll stop now, but this is a sense of inevitability. So again, what really breaks my heart most about the Ukraine conflict are the lives lost, but what breaks my heart second most is that all the new weapons being replaced are putting CO2 into the atmosphere in ways that would not have happened before for products that are useless. They're trying to stop the major enemy of us, which is global climate change.
If there is one thing that you would like everyone on the planet to understand about a warming planet and rising sea levels, I know this must be frustrating for somebody that has seen the effects in firsthand. What would you say? What would you say that everybody needs to know?
Gosh, again, that's a tough one. Just the fact that it is happening. Once again, I think what we need to understand is of all the processes operating under human control, that the scientific method has to be and should remain the least political, that this is not a religious doctrine, that this is not driven by any sort of politics. Unfortunately, we're humans, so that does happen. But let's just say that of all the processes we do, scientific method really is the one that should be and is perhaps the most apolitical. And we have to put some faith into it. It's not a religion, it's a philosophical construct based on facts. And these are telling us the climate change is real, it's accelerating, and it is a double-barrel shotgun pointed at civilization. Loaded.
We have just 2 more questions of Dr. Ward. If anybody has a question they would like to leave in the chat, please do so now. Doctor, Washington, particularly the state, has had a very strange weather year. That's not climate. Weather isn't climate. Where we had a wet, long, record wet and cold spring and winter, and then an extended drought. We traditionally have a drought in August and September, but this is extended a long way. As you think about a warming planet, what would you expect us to see in the state of Washington over the next decade or so? What kind of events should we be looking for? What should we be aware of?
Well, I think it's not just the state of Washington. What climate change is doing is driving extinction of 2 seasons, spring and fall. Washington State, Seattle, we had 80-degree temperatures up till about a week ago. Last night, it was down in the low 40s. Where I live, it was in the upper 30s. And what I've been seeing last spring, for instance, Washington State, we had cold winter all the way into May. In April, we had a freeze in places. I live in Snohomish, just to the north of Seattle, and we had a freeze that had never happened at that time, that late in April before. We are switching right from hot summer to cold winter. So we're getting rid of the in-betweens. That really seems to be what is affecting and driving an awful lot of the effects on animals and plants. They are just not sort of geared to understand that there's not a gradual change anymore. You've got 2 climate states. And people say, well, how could global warming cause ever colder winters? But it's really not so much the cold that really strikes me. It is the fact in a warmer atmosphere, there's more moisture in the atmosphere. And cold happens. We get these cold fronts. If there's more water in the atmosphere, of course it goes out of snow. More snow stays longer. So hotter summers, longer summers, the trees just get a little bit warmer. we finally installed in my house, because I think, as you know, only 30% of Seattle houses have AC. But it's not the AC I'm interested in, it's the air filters for the smoke. Now, again, it was too dangerous for schools in Seattle area to have their kids outside a week ago. Too dangerous because it was hazardous to your health to breathe. And this is because we had such a long, hot, dry, no water. And as you know, the wildfires are everywhere. So we are now, that's the new normal. We go from a long, hot summer into what used to be autumn is now smoke season.
Well, Doctor, you've had a lot to say, and we thank you, but I want to leave our team with some hope. So what can we as individuals do to positively impact the matters you've discussed with us today? What can we do?
Well, it's people like you that give me hope. The fact we're having this conversation. Yesterday, again, I did an hour with a tech group out of Germany, which was really, I mean, the Europeans have been concerned about climate and climate change for a very long time. And obviously, they're very concerned now because they got the Russians on their doorstep, the Germans do. But that I see ever more awareness and the sense that, look, things change and things can change. Let's give just two quick examples. I know you all have stuff to do. Go to any bar now. You don't have to walk home and then the next day put all your clothes in the washing machine because of the smoke. People smoking in bars, that doesn't happen anymore. The fact that same-sex couples have rights and can love each other openly. The fact that we do change. We have enormous political change that can happen. And I'm believing that we are seeing this with the sense of understanding. We don't get together, all of us, to affect the change and ameliorate what climate change is doing. We're in real tough shape. But small groups, large groups, conversations like this give me hope.
Well, we do have some questions that have come in. I don't know, Bianca or Alexa, do you want to read them?
I can read them. So the first question is from John Devaney from the Washington State Tree Food Association. And he said, our focus tends to be on loss/extinction from climate disruption, but those change conditions also allow for new species emergence and movement of existing species into those newly friendly conditions. What does the historical record say about the speed at which those adaptations may occur?
Well, there's always loss before there's gain. I once had a debate with the SETI, Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, and they were saying, well, look, after every the big mass extinctions, look at all the good stuff that appears. I said, you're right, it's great. All we have to do is wait 1 million years and there'll be lots of brand new good stuff. Can you wait that long? The fact is that there's going to be a lot more loss before there's gain. I was given hope, what I thought was so cool. I'm out in just the farthest, wildest parts of Papua New Guinea on boats out there. And I'll tell you that being at the equator is a wake-up call. I mean, we're talking, it gets light at 6, gets dark at 6, nothing ever changes, there's no seasons, it's 98 degrees, 90% humidity, and nobody has any hope because there's no industry, and it's crazy. But looking at pictures down below, I'm seeing the process you just mentioned. I'm looking at entirely new communities, reforming, organizing, setting up new rules. So I think the analogy I see is young people reorganizing political thought, and reorganizing how we think about each other. And that we're seeing that the old ways just don't work. I mean, it's not so much okay boomer as maybe goodbye boomer. And let's hope it's your generation that does better than mine did.
So this is from Lacey Peterson, our media director. She said, in science, as we learn and as new information, data, and facts become available, it's natural that our views and understanding of things will evolve and change. What is one thing you have learned in the past few years that forced you to really rethink what you thought was true? Or what was the biggest aha moment that led to a big shift in your understanding of one of your areas of expertise?
I'd rather be sort of more general about it. I want to go back to, again, one of the biggest surprises of my life is how really enormous political change and people's understanding and acceptance in change can be. And I want to go right back again to gay rights and the sense of the acceptance now. Things that even 20 years ago, Obama, the great liberal African-American president, saying, no, we can never have marriage between the same sex. And by the end of his presidency, that completely flipped. So I choose to to be hopeful and thinking that we see these problems, but I teach kids. I refuse to retire simply because I just get such a sense of optimism going into the classroom and seeing these kids, these 21-year-olds, and understanding how much they want the world to be better. So, yes, I think if you say climate change is happening, it's hopeless. No, climate change is happening, but we can deal with it.
My wife has been listening in the background here at Doctor, and she says, okay, one thing we can do today.
Well, I did it yesterday. I voted. You've got your little envelope with all that stuff in it. Vote. I think it doesn't matter who you vote for. What happens, losing is not enough people vote, because then it isn't. I mean, all this people say it's fake, whatever. No, losing. I lived in Australia over and over. Voting is required. If you do not vote, they fine the holy heck out of you. That was an interesting deal. I always thought, well, it's my right to vote or not vote. In Australia, no. I don't know if that system's better or worse, but everybody votes because nobody wants to pay the fine. So their politics, in a way, no one says it's illegitimate because we know we all voted. Maybe we should try that here.
Yep, my ballot's by the front door. So
I saw that our client, Carl Kaluza, has his right in his hand. So I think that's a good lesson and the right time of year to make that lesson real. Dr. Ward, 10 years ago, I had a chat with you to talk with it, and it changed my life in so many ways. And it made me open my eyes to what was happening around me, where before that I had been closed. I thank you for meeting with us today. And on behalf of the full Action Mary team and our clients, thank you for taking the time to meet with us today and talk to us about these important issues. So can we give a big hand to Dr. Peter Ward?
Because is a production of Action Mary LLC. Copyright Action Mary 2023.